Welcome to Robert Bellissimo at the Movies. This is a YouTube video podcast where we explore all things cinema. Today I'm going to be reviewing TU IL ELLE, which was written... Welcome to Robert Bellissimo at the Movies. This is a YouTube video podcast where we explore all things cinema. Today I'm going to be reviewing TU IL ELLE, which was directed by Chantal Akerman. Chantal wrote the screenplay with Eric D. Kuiper and Paul Piquet. Apologies if I don't have these great names pronounced correctly. I'll do my best. It also starred Chantal Akerman, Niels, Arestrup, and Claire Wauthion. This is a difficult film to give a synopsis of, and I'll explain why in a little bit. But here, the IMDb one is: J is a girl voluntarily locked up in a room. 2 is the script. Il is a lorry driver, and Elle is the girlfriend. So. I love that. It's like, okay, well, where do you go with that? On Criterion.com, it says Chantal Akerman's first narrative feature is a startlingly vulnerable exploration of alienation and the search for connection. I think that's a much better synopsis. I really love this film, and I really love Chantal Akerman's films, which are, what people would call slow cinema, experimental cinema, which, before I talk about the content of the film, I think it's important first to discuss a little bit about or at least how I've experienced the best way to watch a movie like this is you can't watch it like anything else. And I merely mean anything. I mean, anything, whether it's a conventional Hollywood film or even a character-driven art film. These are hard to watch because they're very long, static shots. What's happening in the frame is often very subtle, and it's a really different experience where you don't always know exactly what's happening. I sort of compare it to a couple of different things. On the one hand, you could compare it to going to an art gallery and looking at paintings, looking at the image. And you decide what you see. You decide what it's about, as opposed to you being told everything. You decide. And so it includes the audience in the making of the film. It's almost like you're making your own movie in a sense, because you're looking at these images. Like I said, they're long, static shots. It can be holding, and for example, there are long shots of her, eating sugar out of a paper bag, or she's sitting on the floor with her head, leaning against the door to the washroom, and so you decide what is this about, and obviously she gives you enough context. You can't, you don't want to be totally lost. But I agree often with Bresson, the great French filmmaker, said, when you tell the audience everything, it's no longer a work of art. And I agree with that. It's invite the audience in to participate. And, why is that valuable? Well, I mean, in life, often when we see something on the street, whether it be an argument, whether you're on a bus or a streetcar and you just see someone crying, your brain may ultimately ask, what is why is this person upset? Or you may judge, or you're in a public space getting upset or whatever. But when you're forced to sort of empathize, or not I shouldn't say force. You should want to empathize with people more, but it's much more valuable to, if you don't understand something in life about why people behave in certain ways, it's much more valuable to come up with your own answers when we don't always know the context of everything, and things are not always simple. Things are often, people's motives are often complex, and so the more we look at, we communicate and collaborate and interact with art in this way, where we're not only feeling it but also going to it. that will help us so much in life to be able to, understand the human condition and understand that things aren't simple. And even a film like this, I've read some very interesting takes, really insightful takes on the film from others that I didn't see. But it's not that, you come up with one answer or one static interpretation about something. It's that you're open to possibilities. It could, I'm not arguing, oh, well, the way I see it is better than the way you see it, or vice versa. I mean, maybe in some ways people can be way off, which is, it's fine to disagree. But, to just be open to possibilities, that nothing is just simple and a simple motivation. We're just too far complex for that. So again, here we see, the film is told in three parts. So the first part is who Chantal plays. The character's name is Julie. She never talks in the film. She's got one line in the third part of the film where she comments on being hungry. That's it. There's very, 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 actually very little dialogue in general. And, she's holed up in this room, and she talks about that, she left. She doesn't say who she left or where she left. And, again, you're looking at her, for a long extended time. And and the camera goes to every side of the room, so you get these different perspectives of the space she's in. It's a very small room. And then you really, as opposed to trying to figure out, I think often in life we don't like to be confused. We like to know things. But you just got to let that go and just focus on, what she's experiencing emotionally, and make your own judgment call. It's very important, I think, to look at people and to see how what's happening with them emotionally. And there you see she looks upset, she looks sad. And we see she's rearranging her furniture again and again. And the film has this voice, it's her voiceover, and she's talking about what she's doing. And occasionally she looks right in the frame. And again, it's almost like she's confessing everything to us. And I think the two, the you, TU IL ELLE, is also us. We are just as much involved in this film as the characters in it. And so, like I said, she's rearranging the furniture again and again. She's eating sugar out of a paper bag. Then she's writing this letter. Then she's rewriting the letter. Then she takes her clothes off. She's lying on this mattress. She's looking out the window. Then she's sitting, leaning against the wall. And so we spend so much time with her. And I also compare a film like this to meditating, when you sit, you close your eyes, you focus on your breathing. When your mind trails, you acknowledge it and go back to the breath. And this, because your mind will wander, you can get bored occasionally, or you can also be reminded of something from your own life when you're seeing, it's like, oh, I remember when I was so down that time, and your mind might go there or remind you of another experience. And then you just go right back with it. It's almost like what sometimes people call a hangout film. It kind of has that sort of feel as well. And so we're experiencing this, and it's not just about thinking your way through it. My advice would be to think about it later. Your mind will make their own answers automatically. You don't have to sort of stew about it. It's just feel it, experience it. And that's, Akerman was highly influenced by this style of filmmaking, by the slow, experimental and style of filmmaking. And she really wanted her films to have a real emotional experience. How do you do that without, something plot driven or more characters populating the screen, lack of dialogue in this film, like I said. So how do you do that? And she does it beautifully. And just the shots are so wonderful when they look like paintings, like I said. I mean, she never goes too close to her face, never goes to a close-up, because the room is also so important to her alienation, the feeling of being claustrophobic, about being stuck, depressed, not wanting to leave. And I just absolutely love the images, because they really, really, really speak volumes. Her composition always is phenomenal. And I when I first saw Jean Diamant, I just thought this is too long. It's interesting to an extent, but it's boring. And I thought that about some of our other films I saw. And then I was like, man, once I returned to them, I was like, wow, I was so wrong. It's just that I am watching this maybe like I watch other movies. And you can't do that. You have to be really interested in human behavior to get into a film like this. And like I said, she trusts in the intelligence of the audience to really experience this film. But so the first part, and then eventually she looks in the mirror, she smiles, and she's ready to go out. And so the second part is she hitchhikes with this truck driver. And again, they say very, very little to each other, but you just have to focus on what's happening between them. They go out to eat at like it looks like a restaurant. There's a TV on, they're watching the television, and they're not talking, but there's a certain comfort among one another, and they're sort of sharing food with each other. They almost look like they've known each other for years, but she's just met this guy. And so then she seems to be comfortable with him, and vice versa. And I think she really empathizes with him. Again, truck driver, he's alone on the road for long, long hours. And I think she felt an instant connection with him. You get a strong sense that they were physically intimate. They appear almost like they're going to become lovers or get married or become boyfriend and girlfriend or whatever, or something like that. And you spend all this time with them. Then he brings her to this bar and he introduces her to everybody. And it's really interesting the way in which they sort of just kind of connect like magnets. And then eventually she gives him a hand job, which is done off camera, which is interesting because I'll get to the other sex scene, which is totally on camera in the third part. But she does this off camera, and I think there's an interesting reason for that, which I'll get to. But then we hear him talk for the longest time, this long monologue. And everything that we've thought about this guy, there, he seems decent, he seems kind, he's helping her with, bring her to wherever she needs to go. We don't even know where she's going at this point. And, maybe she doesn't even know where she's going. And so, we spend all this time and he's going on, and everything we've, at least my impression of him so far, has just been obliterated, because then we find out he's married. Then, he's got children, and he confesses to be attracted to his daughter, which is really, really disturbing. And, what I think is so interesting, because often in, let's say, more conventional films, they will tell you what the characters are like very early in the film, so that then when the film progresses, we won't be so surprised by the way in which they react to certain things. But because we've already kind of spent time with them, which is fine, that's certainly plausible in life. We could, we can know what people are like and then get an impression of what they may be like in a certain situation. But sometimes we could be totally surprised. And isn't it so common to think someone and then find out different sides to them that shock you? And people are. Don't you hear it all the time when they find out a different side of someone they know, and they're almost so shocked? And to me, why be so shocked? We have all kinds of different sides to ourselves. I've learned to never really be shocked about if I discover something new about someone, or if I find a different impression of someone. So I like that she doesn't just say, "Oh, he's like this." She shows you what they're like together, but then shows this other side to him. And what's so interesting here is that you can only see her. She's very mysterious in this scene because she never cuts to her close up. You just see the side of her face listening to him. And every now and then she's smiling, and you think, well, at this point, you almost feel like these two are going to be together. Why is she smiling? Because now she's finding out all these things about him that I think anyone else would be shocked, after spending this much time with someone or intimate with someone, that they are married with kids. He even talks about, I pick up other people and sleep with them and stuff. And it almost, he's so insensitive to her, almost as if she's just a number. that he's picking up and then dropping off. Again, like I said, the attraction to his daughter. And so again, it's that mystery of, then you have to sort of decide, well, is she smiling because maybe she's now afraid of him? He's saying some disturbing things. She's smiling so he doesn't get the sense that she's afraid. Maybe she's plotting how to get away from him. You don't know. You really don't know. But not long after this, you never see him again. So you think, did she just arrive at her destination and say goodbye, or did she just, when he took a washroom break, did she just run off? Again, you do not know. But then in the following scene, the last part is with this woman. And, she says, oh, well, you can't stay here. And you think, oh, is this the person that she was writing in the beginning? You don't know for sure, but I think it is, because there's this strong connection between the two of them, a real sexual connection as well. You can really feel it, the way in which Claire Wauthion is just credited as the girlfriend. Same with Niels Arestrup, credited as the truck driver. And they're almost playing like a cat and mouse game. She's like, oh, you can't stay, but then she's staying, and then she gives her food, and they're sort of almost toying with each other, and they're just looking at each other lovingly. And then this like subtle seduction starts, and then this really long sex scene. And it was one of the first depictions of two women having sex in film. Not only that, it's graphic and long. And what's interesting is that it's not just meant, a lot of sex scenes are just meant to like titillate audiences, particularly in Hollywood films. But it shows so much about the relationship because there's such passion there. There's so much love, and they're just like squeezing one another. It's just like, people who in love do. It just can't get enough of one another, sort of a devouring one another. And so it's the sexual side of their relationship. It's another way to show how people connect and communicate through having sex. And I thought, wow, we should see this more often with sex scenes, because like I said, sex scenes are often just meant to sort of arouse an audience. And sure, yeah, in good films they're saying something about the characters, and this one certainly probably one of the best sex scenes I've seen, because it like I said, it shows this connection between the two of them, this strong connection. And then, she said, and then they fall asleep. And then in the morning, Julie just leaves, and that's the end. That's the end. And so, again, it's posing questions. Is this the girl from the beginning, or does she just need to go? Maybe this is someone else she knows, or maybe she just needs to be with someone. Maybe she just needs to connect with someone. Maybe this is another relationship that ended where they weren't good for one another anymore. You don't know. I mean, my opinion is that it must be, I think it's the woman. I think that's fairly obvious that it's the woman that she's writing from the first scene. And she just couldn't help. She missed her so much that she had to see her, but you get the impression ultimately there's something not good in this relationship, but that at least the physical connection is very, very strong. What's also interesting, Chantal Akerman was openly gay. What's interesting in this film is that you from seeing her with the truck driver, you would imagine, okay, then she's heterosexual. Then you see her with this woman and you think, is she bisexual? Is she gay? What's going on here? But what I like is that she does not label this person as bisexual, heterosexual, lesbian, which is fine. I mean, if one did, but I think often, we're so particularly today, we label people so much based on their politics, based on their sexuality, based on their religion, and that's only a part of someone. She could be a significant part and a really important part. But we need to transcend those big parts of our lives, that we are so much more. That this film ultimately, I think, really is about depression from a bad breakup, and the toll that can take on people. She was 24 when she did this, right? And it feels like people in their 20s, because it, often when you, at least my experience and others I've known, those could be the hardest breakups because they're the first breakups and they're very intense, and when they fall apart, we haven't experienced something like that. I'm not saying that can't happen when you're older, but it's common that it's the hardest when you're young, when you're perhaps more vulnerable or less experienced, and so it has a strong, and I think that's the big thing, and we can all relate to that. It's not just a film that belongs in a certain category. She's a humanist. She's interested, and she didn't like to be categorized in any way. I remember she would say about Jean Dielmont, because people would often try to find meaning in the film, and she says it's not a meaning film. And she's a humanist. She's interested in the human beings, human experiences, human relationships, and so I think it's totally fine to valid to look for meanings and perhaps look at the sexuality. I think it's fine, but I think it's also limiting to just say, oh well, it's this or it's that. I think it's just far too complex. But I also wanted to read something because Ira Sachs, who just made a film that I loved called Passages, which also has a similarity with TU IL ELLE. Not that this film is a love triangle, because in TU IL ELLE the truck driver doesn't know the girlfriend, but in the film he made Passages, it's this love triangle, and yeah, the exploration of bisexuality plays a bigger part in that. Really, really, really good. But he said something interesting. He said, you could call this a gay rights film, right? It's a film that says there's a chance that you'll have a better life with a woman, if you're a woman, than with the men that you meet in the truck. And I just thought that was so incredibly insightful, because, maybe this is a character who's not completely, if we're looking at it in terms of, what the sexuality of this, whether she's bisexual or heterosexual, you could almost say maybe she's not completely out. Maybe she's trying to force herself to be with a man because the pressures of society and homophobia. And look at what happens with this guy. But then look at her with the woman who's so passionate and so, and Ira Sachs also commented it's one of the few times you see her laugh, right? And just joy in the film. And so you could look at it as saying, if you're gay or bisexual or what have you, then and embrace it, step into who you really are, be yourself. Whether Chantal Akerman had that in mind or not, I don't know. But I thought it was, from what Ira Sachs said, I mean, I'm also interpreting what he's saying and expanding on it a bit. But I thought that was really interesting. And I think that may also be why when she gives the truck driver a hand job, it's the camera's on his face. So we don't see it, but yet the sex scene we see with the woman, and then we see it for a long time. Right. And so you got to ask yourself, why make that choice? You could almost say that it's almost a rejection of this woman who is perhaps gay and maybe not being able to come out for whatever reason, and maybe trying to be with a man. But obviously, it's like, no, this is not who you are. Go be with the woman. So what a telling thing that she shows that off camera with the man, but the sex with the women she shows, for a long time. And, here I am looking at the clock, talking about this film for 24 minutes, and it's 3 different parts where there's very, very little dialogue, and so much to experience emotionally, and so little is really fed to you. And so much of what I'm saying is my interpretation, and not just my static interpretation, but that I'm open to seeing things in different ways, and that it's not just one way, it could be 10 ways. Nothing is, well, I shouldn't say nothing. Some things, yes, are simple, but not everything is just simple, and we're so much more complicated and bigger than we think. And so this film is so highly valuable in so many ways. And I just think Akerman is a really bold, daring, experimental, emotional, unconventional, ambiguous filmmaker she just executes her film so brilliantly. So if you haven't seen this film, you can check it out on the Criterion channel, and I highly recommend it.
Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I want to thank all of my members on Patreon. If you're interested in becoming a member of my Patreon, head over to the link, patreon.com/Robert Bellissimo at the movies for full details. Patreon is exclusive content that I create month in and month out. And as a subscriber, you are able to vote on polls and contribute to what I do on Patreon month in and month out. So head over to the link for full details. You can also leave a donation directly to my YouTube channel by pressing the thanks link, which you will find directly below the video frame. Just click on the thanks link and you can leave a donation there if you choose to. And lastly, if this is your first time here, please consider subscribing. It is absolutely free to do so. By pressing the Robert Bellissimo at the movies logo, you will see it floating above my head in the top left corner to your top left. In just a second, just click on that and then click the bell in order to get a notification every time I release one of my new episodes. Also click the like button and leave a comment below. Let me know what you think of this episode. Also, you can also share the episode. All of these things are what produce traction to my YouTube channel. So I appreciate you watching and thank you again. And I will see you in the next episode.